Hi, Year 10. So now we are moving on to question 4. So in question 4, what you need to do is, it's quite tricky because obviously it's worth quite a lot more, but what you have to do is compare but also analyze the language. So it says here for this question you need to refer to the whole of source A together with the whole of source B. So that is both the texts, okay? So both the texts that you need to look at. Now, the question is compare how the writers convey their different ideas and perspectives of the events that they describe. So obviously we need to compare, so look at the different ideas, okay? So it's given us a clear instruction, look at the different ideas and about how the writers convey ideas and perspectives of the event. So what do the writers feel or think about the events that unfold in both locations? There's a few pointers that the examiners provide. So in your answer, you could compare their different ideas and perspectives, okay, which we mentioned before. Compare the methods they use to convey their ideas and perspectives. So, you know, what some students may neglect doing is actually compare the methods, which is, you know, does the writer use a metaphor or a simile? So try and pick out some techniques if you can identify them, and then of course support your response with reference to both texts. So essentially the question is really asking us to write in what we call setter paragraphs, okay? So in setter paragraphs we first compare, then we provide evidence, technique and analyze for one for the first source, and then we do it for the second source, okay? So in practice what we can do is look at the source. So if we look at the first source, and you know, I think the question you know, is slightly challenging, but you need to look at the differing ideas and perspectives of the event. So if I look at this one here in source A, in Aberfan, the writer, he kind of almost has this idea that the life that in which these villagers live, it's almost destined. They're almost you know, they almost have to accept the harsh realities that they face. So an example of this is such villagers learn to accept the twilight world where most of the menfolk work down pits, okay? The sense that these villagers are living a life that is already harsh and they have to accept it. Whereas if you think about in source A, I think the writer here, he feels much more kind of interested, curious about what's happened with the earthquake, and that's shown by the series of questions. So for example, you know, who knows how deep or wide you know, the huge crack in the earth crust runs. A few, you know, if you look at here, there may only be a few miles below its fair surface. Why not an earthquake destroy a metropolis? You know, there's loads of questions here which tell you that about the writer's attitude or thoughts and feelings, and it's something that's quite curious. It's something that's quite interesting. So let's have a look at an example which I wrote earlier, which I may have to edit a little bit. So here you've got, we start off with a comparison. So it's also the writer presents the town of Aberfan as having to accept the reality of grim life of hardship caused by the mining, whereas in source B, okay, source B, the writer has a curiosity about the earthquake. Okay, so that's a comparison here. Then we're going to give evidence for source A. The writer says that such villages learn to accept the twilight world when most of the menfolk work down in the pits. Okay, so what I've taken to mean by the idea of twilight is, okay, it does mean that it's dark. Okay, the twilight world is used to refer to the darkness of the mind, but this can also be a metaphor of the dangers that the men are exposed to. So I'm looking at the kind of more metaphorical meaning behind that. Okay, so we've done source A. Okay, we've done CETA. Now let's look at the next source, and we need to use phrases which comparison that compare or compare differences to. So I've used the phrase, on the other hand, the writer in source B was intrigued by the idea of the earthquake, often seeking to understand the phenomenon. And this is shown by a series of questions such as who knows how deep or wide, suggesting almost morbid curiosity about the earthquake. So here you've got a paragraph which compares the different ideas of the writers. It gives evidence, but also analyzes the language. Okay, so if we go back to the text or the revision booklet so what we need to do is write at least 2 of these, detailed set of paragraphs. Each comparison must have a clear topic with focus on the question. Zoom in on the most powerful and effective examples of language or structure used by the writers to express their opinions, and how does each method you choose add to your understanding of the writer's viewpoint. So try to do at least 2 of these if you can find them.